Recording.
Okay, so I'm going to call to order the January 18th, 2022 meeting of the White Bear Lake Conservation District Board. We have a quorum. So that's item number one. And two, we've called to order. So the next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Does anybody have any adjustments that they'd like to make to tonight's agenda? And I'll make one. I'd like to add one item under unfinished business, and that's discussion on establishing the ordinary high water location. But if nobody else has anything, then I will make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion? Okay, I'll call the vote. Or Alan, actually, will you call the vote for us?
And I tell you what, I think we're all old hands at this Zoom stuff, and I don't expect any minority reports or votes. I think you can probably just go by voice vote, Mr. Chair. We did it obviously by polling last year, but I think you're fine just calling all ayes, and just the silent for the nays should be enough.
Okay, that sounds good. So I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay, so that passes. We have an agenda. Next item is approval of the November board meeting minutes. Are there any adjustments to those?
Minor thing, I noticed treasurer's report didn't have a number in front of it.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Treasurer's report item, like somewhere down 11 or 12, doesn't have a number in front of it.
And Diana's out of town?
Oh, I see. So yeah, Kim, do you see that the treasurer's report doesn't have a number there?
Yeah, I did see that. I'll fix that. Okay.
All right, thanks. Okay, any other adjustments? Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the November meeting minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, I'll call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes. We have approval of meeting minutes. So the next item on the agenda is a public comment period that we reserve for items that aren't on tonight's agenda. Is there anybody on our Zoom meeting tonight that would like to take advantage of this time?
I'd like to, Brian.
Okay, Brian, go ahead and let us know who you are and fire it up.
This is Brian McGoldrick, 36 Moonlight Bay, Stillwater, Minnesota. First of all, I want to wish everyone a happy new year and thank you for your time commitment. I was going over the lake level here in the last week or so and noticed that it was hovering around 923.3. I checked back about a year ago and it was at a little over 924. And 2 years ago, it was a little bit over 925, almost 2 feet difference from where we're at today. And the point that I wanted to make is when I circulated the document of what the court had, it had 923.5 as an indicator that we better start making some changes. And so in essence, we're below the 923.5 as the court establishes what the trigger is. And we currently have a DNR permit that was approved by the DNR. We spent a whole lot of time doing that. Our docks have been in compliance with our DNR permit. The DNR permit, which you have on file, is very specific start date, specific end date. It has specific as to the lengths of the dock, and it also has specific as to the number of slips that you have. And I would hope that when you're going through the approval process, that you manage to the DNR permit. And that I wouldn't be the only one in the state of Minnesota where there's hundreds of marina permits that wasn't allowed to. And I also would like to comment on Brian's point that he made about establishing the OHW. Well, that's fairly well established, but when I worked with the DNR on establishing our permit, they keyed the phrase access to navigable water. And so that number, I believe, was 36 inches. And at that point, you could get a pontoon boat into a boat slip. And they also put on my permit, if the lake level gets down to 922, that we can extend our docks significantly further. Some of you remember the T in the dock. And as a final suggestion, on a couple different occasions, we've mentioned the 2005 study. And on that 2005 study, it said that we should review it every couple of years and redo it every 6 years. And perhaps now's the time that we should seek state or federal funding to determine what actually is the accessible water, not only for Commercial Bay, but I think that there's areas around the lake that clearly are more impacted by low water levels than other levels. We should maybe visit boat traffics, board boats. I think that they're, the water quality, invasive species. So I would hope that at some point the board would consider that. And I thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Anybody else on the meeting that would like to take advantage of this public comment time? Okay, we'll move on. Next item on the agenda is new business, and this is nominations for executive board members. And Alan, I'm going to try to lay this out, and will you correct me if I misspeak? So basically, the way we do this is we start accepting nominations for the chair, the vice chair, and the treasurer's secretary treasurer role on board. And we'll keep the nominations open until our February meeting, where we will vote on the nominations and we'll close nominations and then vote. And if anybody would like to be nominated for a position, you can either let Kim know or let somebody know when they and they can nominate you. Alan, is there anything else that I have missed that's important to lay out here? Okay. We maybe have lost Alan. Okay, well, I think that's it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the nominations for these positions. And would anybody like to make any nominations?
Well, I'd like to make some nominations to get the ball rolling. I'd like to nominate Diane Longo for treasurer, but she's not here this month, so might have to wait and see if she will accept it. I'd like to nominate Mark Ants for vice chairman, and he can decide if he wants to accept that or not.
I accept.
And I'd like to nominate Brian D. Smith for chairman, if he will accept that.
Yeah, I'll accept that. Thank you, Mike.
That's it, but there may be more nominations from other board members.
Do any of the other board members have any nominations that they'd like to make at this time? And know that we can make nominations again in February if you're thinking about it. Okay.
And Brian, we just usually say if you're camera shy, just let Kim know between now and the next meeting if you've got someone to put forward.
Right. Right. So that's yep. And I mentioned that earlier, Alan, just so you know.
Oh, sorry.
Uh,
Yeah, I was just finishing up this other meeting since it's the Martin Luther King collation of the two meetings. So thank goodness this one's remote and I can do kind of both.
Yeah, well, thanks. for
Sorry
taking
about
it.
that.
Okay, so we have some nominations, and doesn't seem that anybody wants to make any further nominations at the moment. So we will leave the nominations open until our February meeting, and we will move on to unfinished business. The first item under unfinished business is the second reading of ordinance number 2021-03. And just as a reminder, we read this at the November board meeting, and we decided that we would have the second reading at this board meeting. So Alan, can you keep me on the straight and narrow? Do I need to read this again into the record or not?
No, it's in the agenda packet. If you want to tee it up just ever so slightly, so people just have a sense at home if they don't know what the very high level version of it is. And it's just the second reading. So no, you don't have to physically read it into the record. If there aren't any amendments, then you can just call for was this a public hearing? I can't remember what got noticed.
Yes.
Yeah, so you'll open the public hearing after you describe what it is, and assuming no comments, you close the public hearing, open it to the floor for debate amongst the members. Assuming no debate, entertain a motion to pass second reading, and then we publish it and it becomes your law.
Hey, and Alan, I might have misspoke. I don't think we were in a public hearing. I think that was the meeting before that I'm thinking about. I think
All
for
right.
this one, it was just ordinance changes.
All right, if that's the case, then yeah, you just call for, well, tee it up, call for any discussion. Certainly, if someone has changes that they want to make, you can hold it over till next meeting. Assuming that that is not the case, you would entertain the vote to pass second reading of the language as is or as presented.
Okay, so, okay, that's all good. I just want to make sure I'm looking at the right thing. Okay, so basically this is the ordinance has to do, well, it's to further an ordinance amending the district code to further define dock regulations on White Bear Lake. That's the intent. And generally what we did is we said that no dock shall be left in the waters beyond December 1st without its vertical supports and terminus being clearly marked with reflective tape or paint visible to a distance of 100 feet to ensure their visibility to off-season winter users in the interest of public safety. That was the change to the ordinance. Does anybody have any thing they'd like to discuss regarding this ordinance change? Okay. Well, I will make a motion that we approve this ordinance change.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, I'll call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Hey,
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes. And then the second item on the agenda under unfinished business is the discussion on establishing the ordinary high water level location. And just as background, I guess, we want to establish ordinary, or we've been discussing establishing the ordinary high water level as the benchmark location for determining where the ADUA starts. And there are some questions that we kind of bounced around last time, which were, well, how do we best establish the ordinary high water level location? What kind of enforcement do we use if people don't want to abide by the 300 feet maximum, and those types of things. I think the low-hanging fruit is a discussion of how we would establish the ordinary high water level location. And I think where we're at is that both Tallies and the city of White Bear Lake are okay using the city of White Bear Lake survey crew to identify that location, that starting point along the shore there. And, but I understand that Doc's White Bear Lake would prefer to use their own surveyor. So I wonder if the board needs to, in some way, identify what's acceptable to us as an outside, whether the city is acceptable to us to identify that location, or and if somebody does choose to use a third, let's say a third party, what qualifications would we want for that entity? So those are, that's kind of the background.
Okay, this only applies to Commercial Bay, right?
True.
No.
Oh, sorry, Mark. Thank you.
Nope.
Who else would it apply to, Mark?
Association docs.
Okay.
So would you go around to each association dock and mark it then? Would we do that?
No, what has happened in the past, or it could be anybody, but if a neighbor, like if somebody were to go out way past their ADUA and say, well, I'm only going from shore, our rules is ordinary high water without any kind of amendment or
Qualification.
thank you. In the past, what's happened is if there's some sort of squabble like that, you need to have a licensed surveyor for one, because they're going to put a marker on it with their license and they're not messing with their license. In my experience. And so what's happened in the past is we'd ask the property owner to have it surveyed if they refused. And then we would hire a surveyor to go out and do it. And then if they were in the wrong, we would charge them for the survey. For private use.
And I suppose the situation, Mark, and you help me here, is that the majority of those association docs maybe don't extend out anywhere near 300.
No, I think the longest one is 150.
Yeah, because I mean, we don't want each association to have to pay for a surveyor, I guess.
No, no.
I want to make sure we're not saying that.
Yep. And I think with regard to commercial, it's mainly because they're competing with each other. And, the reason we use ordinary high water too, just for a little background, is because the water level changes every year. Ordinary high water it's a one number. It's not a moving target. If we go out every year, we'd have to go out and measure every year. If you go from water line, or if you go from some places, their properties extend into the water. Some places their property actually stops at a certain point at the lake, at the ordinary high water. So there's all kinds of different deeds out there to deal with, but ordinary high water is one standard number, and it's pretty commonly used.
Any further discussion?
Would we be adding this to our ordinance then? Because when it describes like authorized dock use area and docks and structures and that, it references 300 feet, but it doesn't say where to measure from.
Yeah, that's probably what we would need to do, is say
Be simple,
it's
just add
200
it
feet
in
from
there.
ordinary high water unless water depth isn't, and then up to 300.
And I think that there are references in the ordinances that use that as the benchmark,
Yes.
OHW. And not that I get a vote, but to keep the stink eye from passing across Commercial Bay, considering what those operators are charged, it might be smart to just establish that by the board. In other words, it's not going to cost you that much to shoot the bay and get some marks. And then you've got the line and you don't have to worry about whether or not someone's being honest or not. I totally respect the city has a surveyor on staff and they can shoot it. That's fine. The other operators might have their own people, and yeah, if they have a license, that's fine. But what happens when you get surveyors disagreeing? And I think it would be cleaner if you guys say, here it is. But that's my opinion, because you're the ones enforcing it.
I like that idea.
It won't cost you that much. I mean, I use the folks out at Cornerstone in Stillwater. I know Root and Sons is pretty good. They've done a lot of work around the lake. So there are people that know the area quite well. And knowing that they're doing it for government would probably not, it just wouldn't be that much money for you guys.
So that's an option. I guess alternatively, we let folks identify it the way that they want and I guess decide if there's an issue. It seems like it would be more secure for us if we hired somebody to do that on our behalf. They would have to access private property though, hey, Alan?
Yeah, and I don't think that anyone would be denying him that.
Right. Okay, and I don't know, Alan, I'm not sure, and there are people that know our ordinances better than I do. But do we actually reference the ordinary high water level anywhere as a benchmark measuring point?
I'm pretty sure I've seen it somewhere
It's,
in there.
it's a-
I mean,
we-
I can't pick one out of the other. Mark or Mike probably knows, but I've seen it in there. I just can't pick out which ordinance.
I read through ordinance 5 and it's not mentioned. Shoreline is mentioned, so that, but there's two places that it would obviously fit. Section 2 subdivision 11 and section 3 subdivision 1B. It just talks, 300 feet and it stops, but it'd be 300 feet measured from the ordinary high water mark.
Correct.
And
Certainly a good time to
that
clean
would
it up
just clean
then.
it up. I
Make
haven't
those
seen it very
references.
cut. Go ahead.
Oh, certainly, Mike. I think you brought it up earlier. A good time to clean it up and add it where it's appropriate. So I'm just saying it's not a novel, unheard of term in the code. That's all.
Yeah, right. So, and I think I agree with Mike. I think it could be pretty simple to incorporate it. And can we make that motion now, Alan, or do we have to have some discussion, or do we have to extend this over a couple meetings and have 2 readings, that kind of thing?
Well, you're technically amending your code, so we should look for where it's appropriate, and Mike and I can do that offline and bring those up as sort of a blanket series of code changes. But yeah, it would be an ordinance change, so.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So if you and Mike are willing to do that, then bring that to our February meeting and we can have first reading and we can decide whether we want to waive second reading or move that to March, whatever we want to do there. But
Yeah.
that would be great to put something together to put in front of the board.
All right, and yeah, we can discuss it at exec too and see if it's ready to go.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right now, there is no mention of ordinary high water in our ordinance set. I was just pulling it up here, so it's the only place we use the word ordinary is in another context.
Okay, so that'd be good if Mike and Alan can take that one and work up an ordinance, suggested ordinance change for us.
and if Mike, you're more than welcome to have it, but if you don't want it on your plate, I can do it too.
No problem.
Okay.
Do we want to use what the elevation is for ordinary high water also? Or just leave it ordinary high water?
I
Right.
would just, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, maybe just leave it ordinary high water at the moment.
Okay. Okay, there is on the DNR website, there is a way to measure it on your shoreline. They show somebody doing it, and in case somebody thought that they were close to being over 300 feet, that they could just do a cursory measurement themselves, and then if it was close, they would have to have a professional actually measure it. But like Mark said, there's nobody except in the commercial bay that reaches out 300 feet.
Okay, so another item is the enforcement, that type of thing. Does anybody have any thoughts on that? So let's say somebody, is at 340 feet or just pulling that number out of the air. What would the board do about that? And Alan, can you just talk us through what our first options would be or what the options are already?
The ordinance does have in section or in part 9 violations and the penalties for violations.
And that's the $700.
Right.
Yeah, it's a misdemeanor board. I mean, the broadest stroke that you can say is, a violation of your code is a misdemeanor. Every day that is maintained as a condition technically is a new misdemeanor. So it does not carry over as a continuing one, at midnight. It's a new day and it's a new crime. As a practical matter, people get cited and, they usually get cited once. I think as has been the practice, we don't go looking for fights. So usually it goes through the LUC. LUC writes a letter and basically seeks compliance. If that doesn't work, then the citation machine rolls out.
And Alan, can you talk about the mechanics of that? Does the sheriff's department have to go out and every
Cite
day?
them. Well, if you want them to cite every day, they would have to go out and make an independent assessment each day to ensure that the condition is the same, and they would have the authority to just keep writing citations if you directed them to, but that is who actually can write your citations. So
Yeah.
you don't have an independent police agency. You can't call White Bear. You can't call, any local police force. It's just the sheriff. I haven't seen the DNR conservation officers that interested in writing tickets for anything that is related to the conservation district and their code. So the sheriff is it, either Washington or Ramsey. If you're worried about Commercial Bay, obviously that's exclusive jurisdiction of Ramsey.
Right. And I'm not trying to beat a dead horse here. I'm just making sure I understand. If day one, let's say sheriff's department goes out and cites dock owner A for being extending beyond the 300 feet. And then they don't on day 2 and day 3. Does the fine still apply to day 2 and day 3 or not until day 4 when they go and cite them again like that?
No, it has to be a separate citation. That's why I'm saying that,
Got it.
if on day 1, they get a ticket and that ticket says on, January 18th, it was observed that your dock was out, beyond whatever the lawful number is. That's an observation that law enforcement makes. They've collected that evidence, that data, and they've issued a citation because it's a violation of your code. And it's neat, it's compact, it's done at that point. All the evidence has been gathered by law enforcement at that point for that particular crime, with air quotes. So if someone calls and says, hey, they haven't done anything about it the next day, another officer could go out there and she'd say, yep, it's still a problem, just like it was yesterday. And so they could write a separate citation for the 19th of January and the 20th and the 21st. At some point after 10 days, you could make the pitch to me that, that's too long and it's not getting their attention. And we could go into court as the regulatory body and compel an injunction, basically a court order saying, knock it off. And you're creating a nuisance, you're operating illegally. And so a judge could say, pull it back, basically.
Got it. Okay, any additional discussion on this item? Okay. And I don't think there's any action at the moment, other than Alan and Mike will make some suggested ordinance changes and bring those to our February meeting. Okay. So we'll move on to the next item, reports. The first one is the executive committee, and the executive committee did not meet, so there's no report. So Lake Quality Committee, Mike.
Well, lake froze over on December 7th. Didn't open up again, so that's the official froze over date. And that's a little bit earlier than last year when it froze over on the 25th, so that's pretty good. I got an email from the DNR today. There are grants available again for this coming summer, so I will apply and see what happens. And that's it.
Any questions for Mike? Okay, thank you, Mike. Next, Lake Utilization Committee, Mark.
The chair and board, we had several on the agenda today. I'll start down the list with White Bear Yacht previously tabled. Um, Mike pointed out that they have commercial listed on their application, and we charge more for commercial boats than we do for private. Or to say, if you had a deed to an association or something like that. I talked to Chris at the yacht club, who unfortunately could not attend the meeting today, but he did say that he talked to their accountant. They are charging commercial rates. They are to members. They're not charging to the public, but they are charging their members up to $2,500 a slip, which I told him we would probably look at that as commercial. I told him we would approve his application, but he would get charged at the commercial rate. And he said White Bear Yacht Club has no problem with that. So that being said, other than the change of fees, LUC approved, and I so move.
Second.
And we have a motion and a second to approve the White Bear Lake Yacht Club application. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is Cottage Park. As noted earlier in the meeting, water levels have dropped a little. They used to have 3 fingers going off their dock. They would like to take the one dock and extend the other 2 farther into the water. They're not even going, they won't even be near 200 feet. So that was the only change. And I thank them for letting us know that. And LUC approved, and I so move.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion?
Did we want their total length to be exact then, Mark, or does it matter on that? Because they had 120 there, if they had 12 or whatever they're gonna add, does it matter?
It should be. I mean, the whatever they put in their application should be what the dock looks like when it's put in spring. And if they need to amend that, there's a process to go about doing that.
Which is probably what they'll do if they decide to add the 12 or whatever length.
Any further discussion? Questions? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes.
Next on the agenda, Scott Bonin. His was tabled. We're going to get a new application from him soon, and it'll be up on next month agenda. Next one, Derek Skig. That was no change from last year. LUC passed, and I so move.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes.
Birchwood Village, again, they had no representation. They had on their change from last year. It looks like they may have added boats. We're not sure. So we tabled that one for next month as well, until we can get some clarification from the city of Birchwood. And the next one was Shadowgate. No change from last year. LUC approved it, and I so move.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes.
And that's all I have. Thank you very much.
All right, any questions for Mark? Okay, thank you, Mark. Next on the agenda, the Lake Education Committee, Scott, Meredith.
Yeah, the only thing we have going is we're coming up on the March cleanup is our next event that's organized by the Boy Scouts. I began some communication with the Boy Scouts because COVID is still raging across the countryside like it was last year at this time. They are leaning towards doing I guess, I won't say a virtual event, but they won't gather or feed them. What they'll do is assign parts of the lake to cleanup crews. We would provide plastic trash bags, which is a small expense within our budget. So unless there's any objection, I'll just order those and give them to the Boy Scouts, and they will organize it as they will.
Scott, where does that money come out of? Which budget? Or do you have a budget?
Whatever number it is that, is for education. I
Got
don't have the numbers right here, but it's, $20, $30.
Yeah, so no problem covering that with the budget.
Yeah, because it'll be right out of budget. So I'll take care of that. I don't think there's too much to say about it. It's a little disappointing, of course. A lot of things are disappointing around here. So that's all I have. I don't know if Meredith has any social media updates.
Not too big of an update for you. We're still getting around 1,000 page views a week. Put some things on our social media, more about ice rules, perhaps more out of the packet from Blue Water. And then if anyone has any ideas, winter's a little bit slower with news coming out of the Conservation District. If anyone has any ideas, you can email me.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, any questions for Scott or Meredith?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. And on to the next item, which is the treasurer's report, which is me, I guess, since Diane's not here. So Kim sent out the treasurer's report earlier this afternoon. And I would like to make a motion to accept checks 4738 through 4741.
Second,
We have a motion and a second to accept those checks. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes. And next on the agenda, the board council report. Alan?
Greetings, everyone. Happy New Year. Sorry I couldn't be around for November. That was literally COVID protocol in my house, since my dad, as I took him home from mid-month, declared that he couldn't smell or taste anything. And I'm like, oh, great. And now I'm in a Prius all the way to North Dakota with a guy with the #1, probably yes, COVID symptom. So I apologize for that, but looks like we got some ordinances done. Haven't heard who our new conservation officer is yet. And by the time I left for the holidays, I don't even remember being ice out when I left, but apparently it was, according to Mike. It's been pretty slow to see, certainly along 96, the shacks going up on the lake. But I imagine there wasn't really high test ice until probably the last week and a half. But still nothing's come through, at least on violators for the winter. So I guess stay tuned, and I would stand for any questions.
Any questions for Alan? Okay, thank you, Alan.
Yep, thanks. This will be submitted to anyone who wants to see themselves in lights. This will be going to the Cable Commission once we're done here, and I get it packaged up to them.
Okay, thanks for taking care of that. And thanks for handling our Zoom meeting for us,
Oh, yeah.
Alan.
Absolutely. We'll see about next month. I imagine that'll be an executive decision, but with Omicron peaking by third week in January, I would expect we should be back in chambers.
Yeah, hopefully if it goes the way they're anticipating, things will have settled down getting into February. We'll see.
Just in time for the next variant.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, thank you, Alan. Next announcements, Kim.
The only thing I have is just to remind everyone to please send me in that form I sent. That's the, oh gosh, for the auditor. The conflict of interest form that everyone just needs to have on file is all. So if you haven't sent it in, that's all I need.
Okay, does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, that sounds good. Anything else, Kim?
Nope, that will do it. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thanks, Kim. And then next item, adjournment. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any discussion? Okay, I'll call the vote. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you all for being here and for putting up with this Zoom meeting. And we'll see you next month, hopefully.